Losing a child is one of the most traumatic events any parent can experience. Listening to your child dying over the phone while being eaten by one of the world's most vicious apex predators will leave anyone scarred for life. Be warned, this is a disturbing story of possibly the slowest, most brutal way a person can die from an animal attack. A gruesome event disrupted the tranquility of the isolated forest when a young student and her stepfather were savagely mauled to death by a ferocious brown bear. The attack sent shockwaves worldwide, leaving everyone wondering how such a tragedy could have occurred. As the investigation progressed, however, the horrifying reality of what had happened became all too apparent, revealing a vicious predator waiting in the shadows for its next victim. In this video, we will transport you deep into the wilderness, where a young woman's fantasy camping vacation turned into a nightmare, and reveal the harrowing details of the bear attack on Olga Moskalyova. Prepare for a terrifying story that will make you doubt your own safety in the vast outdoors. Olga Moskalyova was a bubbly 19-year-old woman who had just graduated from music school and was studying to become a psychologist. She had also just passed her driver's license test. To celebrate, Olga and her stepfather, Igor Siganenkov, decided to go camping in the untamed wilderness on the outskirts of Termalny. This small village is located on the Kamchatka Peninsula, which stretches into the Pacific Ocean, the Bering Sea, and the Sea of Okhotsk on the east and west, respectively. The vegetation in the area consists of extensive undergrowth, fir, pine forests, and deciduous trees. The animal species in this area include wolves, deer, bison, and the usual assortment of rodents, foxes, and birds. It is as beautiful and natural a setting as one could hope to find. Comparable to Yellowstone National Park in the United States, the region has geysers, hot springs, mud pools, and many volcanoes. The peninsula is also part of the Ring of Fire, a series of volcanoes encircling the vast Pacific Ocean. Igor and Olga were picnicking and fishing near a local river in late August 2011. They reportedly returned to camp to discover that Igor had left his fishing pole on the riverbank, so they returned together to retrieve it. They arrived at the riverbank and started looking for the fishing pole in the reeds and tall grass that lined the riverbank when they heard a rustling in the vegetation behind them. Olga and Igor were separated by only a few yards, but could see each other. Suddenly, a massive brown bear appeared from the reeds and lumbered slowly toward Igor. He shouted at the enormous beast and moved deeper into the river's reeds. The sow, the accurate terminology for a female bear, stretched out her immense paws, grabbed Igor by the shoulders, and dragged him down to the ground. She swatted him with her huge paws and razor-sharp claws and bit him until she could clamp her teeth around his neck. She effortlessly broke his neck by violently tossing her head back and forth. What followed must have sent shivers down Olga's spine. The bear repeatedly stomped on his head and abdomen, eventually shattering his skull. The bear's 3 babies emerged from the shelter of the reeds and trotted over to their mother's side as Igor's fractured body lay still. Olga fled in terror upon seeing the horrific attack on her stepfather. The sow bear suddenly redirected her energy and focus away from Igor and laser-focused on Olga. The healthy, fit 19-year-old girl barely made it 70 yards when the bear grabbed her from behind, bit her leg, and dragged her to the ground. The bear started playing with her, batting her from side to side with its gigantic paws, and dragging her a short distance like a cat with a mouse. The sow gnawed on her slashed and bleeding leg, eventually swallowing huge chunks of flesh. Olga knew her stepfather was dead when she felt the bear's teeth sinking into her skin. So she did the only thing she could think of. She called her mother on her mobile phone. She knew that fighting back would be pointless, since Igor was killed so quickly by the bear. So instead, she prayed that someone would come and save her. "Mom, it's such agony! Help me, Mom!" Olga screamed as her mother, Tatiana, answered the phone. Tatiana assumed it was a joke, as Olga was known to be light-hearted and loved a good prank. However, Tatiana soon recognized the emotion in her child's voice. She sounded frightened and in obvious pain. The bear was growling and gnawing on Olga, and Tatiana could hear it. She recalled what she had heard in a later interview. "I heard the real horror and pain in Olga's voice, and the sounds of a bear growling and chewing. I could have died then and there from the shock." Suddenly, the line went dead. Despite her prayers and hopes, she realized her child was in grave danger. Tatiana tried to call Igor to find out what was going on. When she dialed his phone, though, he did not pick up. She didn't know that Igor had been mauled and smashed to death by the bear that was now attacking her daughter. She placed a call to the authorities, as well as to her family, pleading with them to go and save Igor and Olga. After getting off the phone, her phone rang again. It was Olga, but her tone had changed from frantic to weak. She told her mom, "Mom, the bear's come back, and she brought her 3 babies. They're eating me." Tatiana's phone cut off again. Tatiana's phone rang for the final time around 20 minutes later, and it was Olga. The bears had had enough to eat, and now they were leaving her to die. Olga knew she was dying and wanted to spend her last moments with her mother on the phone. Olga faintly said, "Mom, it isn't hurting anymore. I don't feel the pain. Forgive me for everything. I love you so much." These were Olga's final tragic words before the phone went silent. The police found Igor's corpse first, when they arrived at the scene later. When they arrived, the mother bear was still pulling chunks of flesh off his body. The sow and her cubs fled into the reeds as the authorities approached them. The horribly mutilated corpse of Moskalyova was discovered nearby. A team of 6 hunters were contracted by authorities to kill the mother and her 3 cubs. The success or failure of the search for the killer bears was never addressed by authorities. In a recent poll in the United States, a staggering 6% said they would win in a fight with a bear. Keep watching so we can show you how delusional these people are, and how gruesome, terrifying, and slow a death humans suffer from when a bear decides you will be its next meal. The most terrifying conflict between humans and other forms of wildlife is when large carnivores attack people. Although uncommon compared to assaults by other fauna and domestic animals, such incidents are increasing in many regions of the globe. This trend raises human safety concerns and undermines conservation efforts for large carnivores and several species' global recovery. When they occur, attacks on humans garner much media attention, which can cause people to exaggerate the likelihood of an attack and ultimately result in unfavorable public reactions and opposition to conservation efforts. The end of legal and widespread persecution, stringent protection measures, and reintroductions have enabled brown bear, Ursus arctos populations to recover and expand in numerous regions of North America and Europe. It is estimated that there are more than 200,000 brown bears worldwide, primarily found in Russia, where Olga and Igor were attacked. North America and Europe are home to approximately 58,000 and 15,400 brown bears, respectively. Even though the number of bears is increasing globally, several small subpopulations are still endangered. Their location in close proximity to highly humanized areas often result in increased negative interactions with humans. Brown bears are known to engage in a variety of conflicts with humans, including property damage and, less frequently, direct attacks on humans. The global increase in human population has led to the expansion of urban areas into natural habitats. Moreover, city dwellers in developed nations increasingly engage in outdoor recreational activities in natural parks. This increased human use of wilderness areas, particularly by those not accustomed to coexisting with wildlife, increases the likelihood of potentially dangerous encounters with these species. Among all large terrestrial and aquatic predators, brown bear attacks receive the most coverage in international media. To comprehend what Olga and Igor went through in the deadly attacks, one must consider how gigantic and powerful brown bears are. The average weight of a brown bear is between 180 and 1,320 pounds, with males weighing more than females. A brown bear's normal range of physical dimensions is 4 foot 7 inches to 9 foot 2 inches for head and body length, and 2 foot 4 inches to 5 foot for its shoulder height. In general, brown bears avoid humans and rarely attack them on sight. However, they are temperamentally unpredictable and will attack if they become startled or feel threatened. The majority of injuries and deaths are caused by sows with cubs, as their long-term exposure to humans causes them to lose their natural timidity and, in some cases, associate humans with food. Habituated or food-conditioned bears can also be hazardous. Small groups of 1 or 2 people are attacked more often than large groups, with no attacks recorded against groups larger than 7 individuals. In contrast to the typically minor injuries caused by American black bears, brown bear attacks usually result in severe injuries and, in some instances, death. The majority of brown bear attacks that result in injury are preceded by a growl or huffing sound, and the bears appear to approach humans as they would other bears. They stand on their hind legs and attempt to disarm their victims by biting and holding onto the lower jaw to avoid being bitten in return. Such a bite can be more severe than a tiger, crushing the skulls of some human victims. People who run are statistically more likely to be attacked in direct confrontations than those who hold their ground. Typically, violent encounters with brown bears only last a few minutes, but they can be protracted if the victims fight back, which is when the terror begins. Bears are omnivores, meaning that they eat animal flesh and plant matter. Although capable predators, they do not dispatch their prey as efficiently as the large cats do. Bears will cripple their target with paw swipes and bites to subdue their victim, and more than likely, start tearing off chunks of flesh of the still alive prey. Olga's case demonstrates this perfectly, as she was still making phone calls while being eaten alive. How does a person survive a bear attack when faced with these overwhelming odds? If you encounter a bear, create a lot of commotion, make yourself appear as large as possible, and stand your ground. Bear repellent should be carried when camping or hiking. Any bears that approach you will be repelled by pepper spray. You should play dead if you do not have bear spray and encounter a grizzly or brown bear. Most bears can sprint faster than 30 miles per hour. For context, most people can run 6 to 8 miles per hour. In other words, you cannot outrun a bear, as Olga tried. Although bears have been romanticized by Winnie the Pooh and Baloo, among others, bears are ruthless killers. Slow, ruthless killers.